Call into session we have a quorum, I believe. There's four of us, so which is the quorum, right? Everyone has received the agenda. Do I have a motion? Observations?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second. Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of meeting minutes of the December 12th meeting. Everyone reviewed those minutes. Are there any observations or alterations?
I make a motion to approve the December 12th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Okay. Any observations or questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, and this is the next item is sort of interesting. Laura Stanley's 15th year. My goodness gracious. Isn't that amazing? Can we wait, because I'd hate to give you something and then have you walk out with it.
Not gonna happen. Who's gonna take your minutes?
Yeah, true. That's what I was worried about. Oh, well.
All right. Laura Camo Stanley. It is with great appreciation and gratitude that we celebrate Laura Camo Stanley's 15 years of dedicated service to the Metropolitan Commission. Laura began her employment with us on January 11, 2010 as an executive assistant. On July 29, 2010, she was appointed corporate secretary for the board by way of resolution, a role she continues to excel in today. In her capacity of executive assistant and corporate secretary, Laura meticulously prepares all the materials for the board meetings, ensuring that each session runs smoothly and efficiently. She keeps our meetings, managers, and even the commissioners on track with her keen organization skills and attention to detail. Laura's commitment to following process and her unwavering dedication to accuracy make her the go-to person for historical information regarding the commission. Her approach to work ensures that the collective work product of the commission is always of the highest quality, a reflection of the standards Laura consistently upholds. This admirable trait sets her apart and underscores her dedication to the success of MetCom. Laura's contributions extend beyond her day-to-day responsibilities. She is always willing to step in, volunteer, and take charge of numerous extracurricular events organized by the Commission, whether it's a formal meeting with another agency or one of our annual fundraising events for charity. Her willingness to support the Commission in so many capacities makes her an integral part of her team, and we are deeply grateful for all she does. Outside of her work at MetCom, Laura enjoys cruising the Chesapeake Bay with her husband, Sean, and catamaran sailing with friends in the British Virgin Islands. She is an active member and an officer of the Southern Maryland Sailing Association and races competitively with a crew in regattas throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. Additionally, Laura also enjoys gardening, creating holiday centerpieces, and traveling. She is also known for offering great recommendations on hidden gems to visit and sharing new recipes. Please join me in congratulating Laura on her 15 years of service to the Commission.
I see those. No worries. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Wait, Laura.
Oh.
I'm not gonna pin it
He
down.
doesn't.
Not gonna- no, no, you're good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
All right. Local Government Insurance Trusts, presentation by Larry Boland.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for inviting me down here this afternoon. It is my pleasure to be here. I am Larry Boland. I am Deputy Executive Director for Local Government Insurance Trust. that thing better known to everyone around the state of Maryland as Legit. We are the risk pool for the state of Maryland. We have been in existence since 1987, providing insurance and risk management services for local governments across the state of Maryland, cities, counties, and towns, and sponsored entities such as yourselves, humane societies, libraries, water authorities, and sanitary districts. We put a tremendous emphasis on the risk management part because our whole goal is to keep you all out of trouble. Because keeping you all out of trouble hopefully reduces claims, keeps insurance costs down. You all have been a member of the trust since November of 1993, and we are very glad of that. We have worked for many, many years with your excellent staff here, and we want to commend you on their hard work. The reason I am here today is that part of our loss control efforts is a grant program that we provide our members, and a grant was applied for and was approved by our risk management committee in December, and the amount is for $14,054 toward the development and application of a telematics system for the vehicles for the Metcom. I will tell you right now, I applaud the effort of Judy Gilman and other members of the staff for this kind of grant request. Vehicle losses continue to increase, and the value of vehicles continues to go up. It is certainly an inflationary thing that we are seeing. So any kind of technology, any type of corrective efforts that we can make to reduce those kinds of losses is welcome. And we're really glad to see you all instituting that type of technology with your fleet. So we are really glad to be able to present you with a check for $14,054.
Thank you.
Please approach the bench. Commissioner Meyerman, if you wouldn't mind accepting the check on behalf of the commission.
I even brought the big check.
Oh my goodness.
There we go. I was told, do not forget the big check.
The big check.
The big check. Yes, sir.
All right, so
That's good.
there we go. I put my hand in my pocket to see it.
I've already had a word with Judy about it.
You had good.
Yeah, great.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank you so much, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you, Larry. And to get you up to speed, that 14,000, our 6-month estimate for implementation was 15,000. So this is well over 90% of our FY25. Oh, I got the real check right here.
The real check right there.
You didn't have to reach in this pocket. It's right here. So it's right there.
Maybe I should have stuck it in my
All right,
pocket.
we'll get that endorsed as soon as we can. The equipment has been ordered, and we expect installation to start beginning either next week or the week thereafter. So thank you, Larry, so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much also, Judy,
Absolutely.
for all your efforts. And, we look forward to getting this thing rolling within the
Absolutely.
next month.
Very good.
Thank you.
You all take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that was nice. Local Government Insurance Trust we have now dealt with. We don't have anything to do on that, right? Consent agenda. Has everyone taken a look at that? Do we have any issues? We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Second. Any observations, questions, yea, nay? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any questions? Okay, the ayes have it. New business. The audit presentation, right?
Make sure this is on for you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
This is our annual presentation of the audit of our financial statements for fiscal year 2024, which ended June 30 of 24.
Mhm.
This is Chris Lehman and Renata Rice
Mhm.
from SB Company.
Well, thank you all for having us. I do have a brief presentation that I'll walk through that includes firm and industry required communications with the board through our completion of the audit. So if there's any questions as we go through this, please feel free to jump in, or I'll ask at the end if there's any questions.
No, you're the same auditing firm that was here last year?
Yep. So
No,
I think
no.
we've been your auditors now for about six years or so. So yes,
that's
I
right.
was here last
Okay.
year. So. And Renata has also been on our team the last few years, but normally I've had the glory of coming to do the presentation, but we'll split it this year. So again, I serve the role as audit partner. Renata was our engagement manager. So we were engaged to audit the June 30, 2024 financial statements for Metcom. In addition, we also assist with the preparation of the financial statements. That is a service that we can provide under accounting standards or auditing standards. That does not impair our independence by doing that. We've issued what's termed an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion, and that would be the best opinion we could give under professional standards. We did not discover any instances of fraud in the audit. The audit, it's not a forensic audit, but we are required to have a healthy skepticism that fraud could happen at any time. We did not have any audit journal entries that we proposed during the process. So that just speaks to the quality of the books that the records that we were given for audit purposes. We had no material weaknesses in any of the internal controls, and Renata will go through a couple of slides that go through the key areas, the key control areas as the audit is concerned. And then lastly, we received the full cooperation of management. So all questions that we asked, we got adequate responses. We asked for a lot of backup, maybe too much backup, depending on your view, but we received adequate support for all the transactions. So there were no instances of unsupported transactions. If there were, I'd be required to bring that to your attention. Ronnie, you want to take over?
So what you see here on this slide is our SBC audit approach. So we have a risk-based approach when we're going through our audit. And what this slide is really a picture of that approach, right? It's a funnel where we do spend a lot of time at the top planning, understanding the business, understanding what the risks are. We perform walkthroughs, so we meet with different personnel that own those processes to gain an understanding of how they work, what internal controls they have in place. And then we also test transactions. So when Chris mentioned requesting support, so that's when we're looking at those different support that we requested for transaction testing. Really, the goal is that we spend a lot of time up front on the understanding portion, and then we're able to spend less time at the end when we're looking at the financial statements, which does not mean that we don't look at them. So we do substantive procedures, financial statement close analysis and statement analysis, and our audit is in compliance with GAS auditing standards. So this is really just a picture of how we perform our audit. On this slide, this is our assessment of control environment. So we use the COSO framework. So those 5 interrelated components that are listed here on this slide are items that we are looking at and assessing when we are performing those walkthroughs and that understanding. So we looked at control environment, risk assessment, information and communication, control activities, as well as monitoring activities. And our assessment is here at the bottom of the slide. So when we were performing that assessment, we have determined that it is effective.
And typically, if there's not an effective environment, which we have seen that other places, that's typically where we have deficiencies in the audit, potentially material weaknesses, audit journal entries, things of that nature.
On this slide, as well as the next slide, those are the key processes that we've determined that are key processes during our audit. And for those, we're looking in more detail as far as walkthroughs, trying to understand what could go wrong in each of those processes. For expenditures, we are testing transactions, reviewing invoices, ensuring that those were reviewed, they are appropriate. And then for the two items that have a star next to it, estimation and financial reporting, those are items that we are testing substantively. And for all those four key processes on this slide, we have determined that they are operating and designed effectively. And then on the second slide of key processes, we see payroll, revenue, as well as fixed assets. So again, testing transactions, looking at revenue recognition, looking at timesheet reporting, and we have determined that those three key processes are also designed and operating effectively.
Okay. Then the last few slides, I'm not going to read this at all, but in some of these things I mentioned at the beginning, where had we found fraud, had we had any material weaknesses, audit adjustments, I'd be required to bring that to your attention. The idea being, although we've issued an unmodified opinion, there could have been issues underlying. There could have been issues that we had to work through to get to that unmodified opinion. There really weren't any issues that I need to bring to the board's attention here. We had no, in addition, we had no disagreements with management. We had no difficulties getting through the audit. And as I mentioned before, we go through a process to make sure that we are independent of Metcom as well, and that just by doing the audit and assisting with the financial statements, it is allowed under professional standards, and we are able to do that without impacting our independence. What we can't do is make management decisions. We couldn't come in and perform management functions, because basically the idea would be is if we were doing that, then we'd be auditing our own work, which clearly not the case here. So that's our presentation for today. We do have our contact information here if there's questions outside of audit season. I know we do work with Patty and her team if there's any accounting questions. The accounting standard setters are pretty good at issuing new standards almost annually, although there were no new standards that impacted the financial statements for the 2024 period. There is a standard that will probably impact compensated absences for the 2025 financial statement. So that's something we can present once we get our arms around that change. But with that, I'll just open it up if there's any other or any questions for us.
It's nice to have 2 years in a row that we can say this. I don't have any questions. Do any of the other board members have questions? No.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Should we stay with you, or are we good to go?
No.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if we could do this.
You can unlock the door now.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you. Okay,
Thanks for having us.
so we're into new business. We have George and Anne Mary.
And we cannot underscore, an unmodified opinion is the best opinion you can get. It doesn't sound very glamorous. And the presentation doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but getting an unmodified opinion is really a big deal,
Absolutely.
especially for an organization like us. And Commissioner, you point out, I think it's more than 2 years in a row. We're on a pretty good streak. It's been many, many years in a row, more than 5. So great job to the fiscal people and our management team and the structure that we have in place. So having said that, second item of new business is a market survey and analysis request. As a part of the FY26 operating budget, one of the things that we wanted to look at, and there's a motion also in your packages today, along with a memorandum from Anne Mary and myself, which hopefully summarizes our request, to provide some brief background information. In calendar year 21 and 22, we performed a comprehensive salary and compensation study. These are performed once every 5 or 6 years. It was implemented on July 1, 2022. It's been about 3 years. The results of that study, interestingly enough, indicated that about 24% of our positions were below the market minimum range. We were able to make those adjustments and bring them up to the minimum market range. We were also able to provide a 5.2 market adjustment for the entire staff to make amends for what was going on in the industry. Since that time, despite our best efforts, and to us that was a big deal, despite our efforts, We've seen Maryland's cost of living rise 16% higher than the national average. We've experienced a fair amount of turnovers in several key positions. Many selected candidates for hire have turned down our offers, and we've observed several other entities such as Charles, Calvert, St. Mary's implement these multi-year market adjustments of between 11 and 17%, of which we cannot really compete. Having said that, the board should get a lot of credit for implementing several mid-year 2% COLAs. For example, you voted in December to provide a mid-year 2% COLA 1 week earlier so that it aligned with our payroll. And I think the same thing was done the prior year. So that would be a 4% COLA rolling over into the next year. That still doesn't keep pace with these multi-year double-digit increases that we're seeing our competitors put in place. We don't believe that an entire salary and compensation study is warranted. It takes a long time. They cost upwards of $90,000. However, we do recommend that we get an independent market study performed that costs around $18,000 for all of our positions to make sure that the pay bands that we have set for each position meets the minimum market conditions. It's extremely volatile out there from what we understand. We just have seen a lot of turnover, and now we're even seeing a resistance to even apply because we do post our salaries. We have done something that we typically don't do. We've implemented the call someone that you know. We do try to recruit, not steal, people from other organizations that we know of who we know would fill their role really well with us. However, it's not something we typically do, but we've resorted to doing that as well. We just think taking a snapshot of our positions in our particular discipline with the current market would be a really good idea. And if we can come back with some recommendations during this operating budget cycle, whether it's a mid-year implementation or a full-year implementation, we'd like the opportunity to do that. Again, we have a motion. You don't have to accept the motion, but our recommendation is, based on what we're seeing out there and some of the issues that we're facing, that we at least take a look. This may come back that all of our pay bands are within the minimum market, and maybe our issues are more internal with the grade and the step structure, but we're more concerned that we're not offering enough in the entire band from step 1 to the end of the step for the positions that we have. And I know, Anne Mary, you'll want to say a few words as well.
Like George said, we are we've made several offers after the initial interview, and I've been ghosted. I've been, told, I can't do it for that. They'll negotiate, and we can't. So, and then we have some positions that we just can't get anybody to apply for, and some that we're just not getting. Even the people that are applying are not the cream of the crop that we used to get. So it has been difficult, especially in the construction, maintenance, those positions especially. It's been hard to compete. It's very hard to compete with an organization down on the base. But even local construction companies are really, it's hard to compete.
And that's including the benefit side. You always used to say, well, the salary may be a little bit lower, but our benefits are far superior. We're comparing both of them. We're comparing both. We really stress our benefits.
Is this survey and analysis, is that going to look at the benefit side of it too, or just strictly cost of living adjustments?
This survey is, I believe he's just basically looking at the
Just the pay bands.
Now this could be a completely dumb idea, but I'm gonna throw it out there. Have you thought about offering some perks, like letting certain members take their truck home or something like that? Is that something?
Our on-call people do that already.
Okay.
We don't want to be. We're not the same as the sheriff department. The sheriff's allowed, the deputies are allowed to take them home because the presence of that vehicle in the community speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that our presence in the community wouldn't speak volumes, but it would raise more questions probably than it would not. that a public utility vehicle is in a personal driveway.
And it also comes with some risk. That's extra time that you have these people out on the road that could have an accident, could.
We'd have to get with Mr. Bowler, who just left. There's a garage keeper's insurance, I think that's what they call it. So if people were housing their vehicles at home.
Yeah, I was just looking for a different way, to try to recruit. So.
Absolutely. We've revamped our entire position description, and depending on whether there are certain certifications that you get that will give you a step. There are certain educational requirements that if you obtain that while you're here, you get a step. A step is not a lot. It is something, but we are looking continuously. You called them perks. That's probably the right term.
Right.
We don't like to provide those unless they're global. It tends to cause some dissension sometimes. But to your point, that is something that we have looked at. And we think we've got about, I think it's eight people between the water and the sewer side that are on standby, and several of those that also take their vehicles home so they can be responsive. So I think we rotate that around several people.
Okay.
And I think that works on the operational side, but on the administrative side, those are perks you don't want to offer. Besides that, we only have 2 administrative vehicles that we share amongst Christine, myself, Ann Mary, Judy, you name it. We probably have about 15 to 20 people that share 2 vehicles. That seems to work, and taking one home would just sort of interrupt that fleet sharing that we do now.
I mean, personally, I feel like our benefits are, it's hard to tell a 25-year-old that state retirement is worth a lot. They're not
They
looking.
don't care about that.
No, they're not looking at,
They want to know if they can make their truck payment.
exactly.
So what is the total level of increase? You mentioned 16% in Maryland alone. So what was the national inflation rate
I don't have that off the top of my head.
over the same period? So what are you looking at in terms of, while you're just informally talking about this, what kind of an increase or would you recommend?
We wouldn't. That's the purpose of the market study. Part of that study is also going to be a recommendation with a brief look at compensation, but a recommendation on a potential market increase specifically for this organization in comparison to the last 5 years of what others have done in our industry, not just a snapshot of this year or last year. We have done and put in place these 2% COLAs. So we get a 2.7% merit increase each year and a 2% COLA on July 1st. The last 2 years, we've received a mid-year 2%. Is that sufficient enough to keep up with a 3-year 17%? Depends on where your salary starts. So this is an attempt to combine both of those to give us a recommendation on perhaps a market adjustment globally or specific pay band increases for some of the positions that we're having difficulty with. We don't want to announce those positions, but we have a list that we have them specifically looking at and targeting, but we do want to look at it globally because we think it's a little disingenuous just to pick on positions that we're having trouble with as opposed to positions that are filled that may still also be not in alignment. It's not an intent to give everybody a raise. It's really an intent to respond to what's going on right now. And what
And
we're
it
seeing.
possibly could be just mid-level, lower levels that, as long as there isn't the salary compression where you.
Oh, what was it? 2-3 years ago, we did a very extensive survey of salaries compared to other similar organizations, etc. That's not what you're recommending. You're recommending
Correct.
A short copy of that.
Much smaller version. That was about a $90,000 effort. This would be about
Right.
18. It has the ability to expand. If we bring back some results to the board to discuss, we have the ability to expand that to include some additional research.
And what is the timeline in terms of doing that? Because in terms of planning next year, you're going to need
May timeframe, April-March timeframe. It doesn't take that long to do this because we're not going through all the position descriptions, reevaluating the structure of the organization, the pay scale of the organization. It's strictly focusing on the market compared to the positions that we have.
And he also has, this will be the same contractor that did it back then. So he has all that information. So that's a big help, both in savings and in time.
It's a good point. It's the same individual, as Anne Mary said, that performed that extensive 2021-2022 comprehensive study. So he's always very, very familiar with our organization. We had a lot of discussion on whether just to pick the 12 or 14 positions. And Anne Mary and I went back and forth many a day, and we just think it's probably better to look at the organization holistically as opposed to just, like I said, 12 to 15 specific positions.
Any questions? No. So there's a motion, I think you said.
Yes, there is.
Can we?
Yeah, I'll
have a
do that
motion?
one. I move that the commission authorize staff to proceed with the planned market survey and analysis by Frank and Associates in the amount of $18,750 to ensure that the current pay bands for the commission's authorized positions have been adjusted adequately to keep pace with the comparable markets. Further move to direct staff to provide recommendations for consideration and possible implementation in the fiscal year 2026 operating budget.
Second that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any questions? Okay, you have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back.
I'm sure you will. All right, we have the market survey. We have that. So now we're the Macro Op-Ed Trust. Patty.
There we go. Hello again. So this is our third quarter of 2024 update on our OPEB trust. Doing very well. Our smaller fund is with the local government insurance MLGIP program, and it just finally jumped over $1 million in that between the second and third quarter last year. The Mako Trust did significantly well. We went from 9.1 million to 9.7 million in one quarter last year, and the trust, the Mako Trust as a whole, has 16 members throughout the state of Maryland, and we expect the next quarter in March, it'll go over 100 million total with all the combined assets of those 16 members. So it's doing very well. I don't know if you have any questions, but there's no action required today. It's just an update.
What kind of we do very well in terms of the numbers, but what kind of a percentage does that represent over length of time?
So we've been in the trust since 2008, I believe. And I'm not sure what Metcom started out with, but of that, Metcom's about 10% of the whole amount of the trust. We do have a good amount in there comparatively to the other 15 entities. So it has grown significantly. And we do, the next agenda item, we'll be making a contribution. And we, like I said, we have the two areas. We have the local government program, which is just above a standard savings account rate, but it's very, very safe. The Mako Trust is in equities and stocks, and so there is a little bit of risk there, but they have an excellent financial advisor that keeps everybody above board.
Good. Any questions, observations?
Okay.
Thank you. Let's move on.
Okay. The next item is our contribution. So we have our actuary gives us an annual amount that we should contribute to our trust every year. Again, the trust is to provide benefits to our retirees when we retire, and we can continue with our healthcare benefits, which Metcom offers to their retirees. And your trustees at Metcom are the Human Resources Officer, Executive Director, and myself. We meet a couple times a year. I've attached minutes from our last meeting, and we are recommending we make our semi-annual contribution to the Mako Trust, and it's $70,000. Our we report the liability in the audit every year of what they expect we should have in our trust to be fully funded. We're in the 90 up to like 97%. We're almost 100% funded to what the actuarial tells us. So, you know, these contributions are pretty good. That we only, you know, the total for FY25 is $140,000. So that's a pretty good amount that we're contributing. Some agencies, you know, across the state of Maryland don't contribute anything. So the liability in their audit is very, very significant.
Good.
So there's a recommended motion to make the contribution, and if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions? No.
I move that the commission approve the transfer to the Mako OPEB Trust account in the amount of $70,000, consistent with the semi-annual amount approved in the fiscal year 2025 budget, and consistent with the recommended action of the Metcom OPEB trustees.
You have a seconder?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next item is we have two resolutions and a policy, and I'd like to preface this item with what the resulting objective is. It's our policy FIN 1301, and it's the section that's regarding billing errors, whether they result in overcharging a customer or undercharging a customer. We must comply with the code of the state of Maryland, which is COMAR. This requires us to refund the customer for overcharges for any period of time, and allows us to charge customers for being undercharged for any period of time, and allows us to charge, we can charge fees and penalties only if there has been fraud or misrepresentation by a customer, and we do not apply any interest. You know, they can't claim that we owe them interest if we owe them back funds, and same in the other situation. But to get to the resulting policy, we have two resolutions that first require your action. So Resolution 2025-01 is rescinding an older resolution, 2007-05. Resolution 2007-05 was adopted in October of 2007, and that resolution was rescinding a policy that was adopted by the Commission in April of 2007. So this resolution 2025-01 would reinstate the policy of April of 2007. The second resolution today is 2025-02, and that is rescinding the policy of April 2007, which also, within that resolution 2025-02, it identifies the steps taken of this entire record. Thank you, Chris, for getting us through this. It kind of memorializes the record of what transpired by the board beginning in April of 2007, which then ends up with our policy FIN 1301, and it complies with COMAR, Maryland state regulations.
Okay. That's a long time
Yes.
ago. All right. So,
Unblending some things that were done before.
right. And
Orders that we
yeah,
became
yeah.
before.
Clean it up a little.
Yeah.
So we have two resolutions, correct?
Yes. So there's a three-part motion attached for you.
Okay. Does anyone have the motion there?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Go ahead and read it.
I move that the commission rescind the revised delinquent billing policy, resolution number 2007-05, as previously approved on October 11, 2007, by approval of resolution number 2025-01. Further move that the commission rescind the delinquent billing policy as previously adopted by the commission on April 12, 2007, by approval of resolution number 2025-02. Further move that the commission approve and adopt the amendments to the tenant landlord account transfers, new customer accounts, billing errors, and refunds policy number FIN-13-01 as presented by staff, which shall take effect immediately.
Okay. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Any observations, questions, suggestions? All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We all have it done. So,
Commissioners, I'll be seeking your signatures on these resolutions at the conclusion of the meeting.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And we have the seventh item, I believe. Right?
Yes. This is a budget
I see,
transfer.
okay. Transfer, 6, yes.
Good afternoon. So this one's hopefully pretty quick. Hickory Hills Tower is actually two separate projects. There's the water tower and the well project numbers. The tower went over budget a bit. Thankfully, we have enough money in the well to cover that overage. So we just need to transfer money from the well to the tower to not be in the negative on the tower side.
And both these projects are complete and fully funded. It won't impact any debt service or rates or anything.
And then there's no, like Debbie said, or Debbie, Patty, my brain, there will be no more additional charges moving forward. These are both done and closed out.
Okay, any questions? You're the official reader today, Bob.
Stepping up, huh? So I move that the commission approve and authorize the commission chairman to sign the FY 2025 budget amendment, BA number BD 250001, increasing the Hickory Hills Tower Project 8081 WT in the amount of $63,738 and decreasing the Hickory Hills Well Project 8081 WL in the amount of $63,738 as recommended by staff.
Second.
Okay, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very much.
The board authority roles and responsibilities.
Firstly, welcome back, Michael Oliver. It's been a while. He served in this capacity, I don't know how many years, for a long, long time.
Before I started. So.
There was an initiative on the base to privatize utilities, of which Metcom could have been a respondent to an RFP to take over those services. So Mr. Oliver, rightfully so, had to sort of step back for a few years till all of that dissipated. And I think it's working well.
It's going well.
Seems to be working really well. Now there is no more potential conflict. So Mike's back with us, and it's good to see you, sir.
It's good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Commissioners, we have several new board members, as you're aware. We also have an election for chair and vice chair coming up in February. So we thought this was a really good opportunity to highlight some of the provisions in the commission's bylaws, specifically your authority with respect to your roles and responsibilities and how the elections would transpire. As we've done in the past, Mr. Beaver, I don't know how we describe him. He's our legal counsel, but he's also your legal counsel.
Mhm.
As we've done in the past, he usually walks us through those bylaws.
That's how you would describe it.
Yes. And he has a brief presentation he'd like to go over. And again, this is timely because in February we will be holding an election.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go. Right, we'd usually be doing this
June-ish timeframe.
Right, June. Um, I'm going to try to keep it brief because most of you know this, and I'm presuming everyone has read the bylaws. So I'll try to make it quickly as possible here. So the first thing we want to look at, we'll look at the kind of the powers and duties of our chairperson. We're directed by our bylaws 371, saying that our chairperson is responsible for presiding over all meetings of the board of the commissioners. It also says that with this responsibility comes the obligation to perform the customary duties of a chair of a governmental body. Of course, I've never done that before, but I was like, well, what does that mean? Does anybody really know what customary duties of a chair of a governmental board chair?
Shake hands.
So I asked myself that question, and I said, well, I could come up with a few general things, but I was like, well, let me see if there's anything out there. So I actually found some guidance from the Institute for Local Government, which is an organization actually in California that is mission is to promote good government at the local level, and they actually had a whole memo on chair responsibilities, and they actually point out a couple of bullet points on a chair's role, and I'll just throw them out there real quick. And most of them are pretty common sense, but it doesn't hurt to hear them, right? Helping the group determine whether it has all the information necessary and available to make a decision. Okay. Where there are multiple points of view on what the best decision might be, encouraging decision makers to share those views. Okay. Actively listening to determine potential points of agreement and testing those points for actual agreement. Managing any conflicts that may arise during the discussions, keeping the discussion on topic. That's always a good one. Ensuring that clear decisions are made, sticking to the agenda. That's another good one. And getting through the agenda items in a timely manner. That's always like the number one for most chairs in our board. Again, there's a lot of those are common sense, and you probably already know that. But I figured it was good to kind of go out and get some real support for that. I thought it was also interesting that the ILG, it says it's good for the chair to understand their role as a team captain, a coach, and a referee. I thought that was actually pretty interesting.
You haven't had any fights for that
analogy.
Not yet.
Right, they ain't over yet. All right, so those are responsibilities of our chair. Obviously, our chair has the authority to sign official documents on behalf of the commission, including all various different types of documents. Our chairperson can select and appoint commissioners, staff members, legal counsel, private citizens to serve on permanent or ad hoc committees. I don't think we have any committees, but the chair has the authority to do that. And then the final note, the final duty, responsibility that our chair has is to represent the commission and express the commission's position in all commission business, right? And then I thought that's something that's interesting and something I wanted to speak to just quickly. You say, what does that mean? Well, that means the chair speaks for the board, right? If the board takes a position, it's for the chair to let the public know what the board's position is, right? There are certain circumstances that arise where board members can be contacted by the press, right, and say, hey, if there's some matter that the commission is involved in, to get their view and say, well, what's going on with this? What does the commission think? At that point, it's the responsibility of that board member to say, well, I can give my personal opinion, but I can't speak on behalf of the board. That's the responsibility of the chair, right? It's the responsibility of the chair to let the public know where the commission stands. The other thing that is noted in our bylaws is the chairperson shall act. Act as a liaison, which it's talked about, and also shall promote the general well-being of the commission. I just thought that was interesting, in that I just feel that that's everybody's responsibility, every board member's responsibility to promote the general well-being of the commission. So, and that's the chairman's role. The vice chairman, again, to act in the chairman's role when the chairperson is not available, right? So that's what the vice chair does. Same thing, just when the chairperson's not available, the vice chair steps in. So that's responsibilities and duties. I also usually, along with, I usually go into the election process that we usually go through, and I'll run through that really quick, just so it's kind of fresh in your mind for our upcoming election in February. So we're governed here by our bylaws, once again, 3.3. The procedure for electing chairperson, vice chairperson are the same for each position. We just do them separately. And in my presentation here, I've broken it down by nominations and then voting. So again, all this is going to seem somewhat commonsensical, but I'll throw a little bit of nuance to it, give you a little bit of color as well. So the nomination method adopted by the commission is for a nomination from the floor, right? So you say, well, Chris, what does that mean? If we look at Robert's rules of procedure, right, there are various ways that you could do nominations. You could do nominations. You can do nominations through ballot, endorsement, through committee, nomination by mail, by petition. There are a lot of different ways you can do nominations. We do them from the floor, or open nominations, right? Makes it easier. So under this procedure, what does that mean? Under this procedure, our chair calls for nominations, right? Says, hey, I want to open the floor for nominations for the role of chairperson or for vice chairperson. I thought this was interesting, that the member doesn't need to be recognized by the chair to make a nomination. You can just throw it out there and just say, I nominate such and such. It's also interesting that under the Robert's Rules of Order that a nomination is not required to be seconded, but we've adopted, the commission's adopted the procedure of seconding nominations. So once the nomination is made, then that nomination would need to be endorsed by a second. So the chair would ask for a second. If there is a second, the endorsement is there, and we move on. If there is no second, that nomination fails, right? Just like a motion, basically. Once there are no further nominations, then nominations are closed by the chair. And you move on to a vote if there are multiple nominations, right? If you have multiple nominations, then you move on to the vote. If you've only got one person who's nominated, we've had that happen with this board before, then the chair can simply declare that nominee is elected, right? Thus affecting an election by unanimous consent or by acclamation. Okay? Mm-hmm. Simple. But if we have multiple nominations, then we go to a vote. That's where it kind of gets a little fun, because I'm going to throw a little Latin for you. So when it comes to voting for the commission chair, vice chair, the commission has adopted a viva voce method, right, of electing our chair, vice chair. What does viva voce mean? Right? It's
means having fun with vodka.
That's what Gerald wishes it means, but that's not what it means. It's a Latin term meaning with living voice or by word of mouth. Yeah. Maybe in Russian.
Yeah.
Once again, we look at Robert's rules, and obviously there are a number of different ways that votes can be conducted by boards. We have ballot elections, roll call elections, cumulative voting, etc. But we have the viva voce method, and under that method, where you have more than one nominee for a given office, the candidates are voted. They're voted on in the order in which they're nominated, right? So you call the chair will call out the name of the nominee, call for a vote. Each each board person will indicate their vote in the affirmative by raising a hand. Not raising a hand means you're a nay vote, Right? The votes are then counted. And it's always important to remember that we keep with the fundamental principle of parliamentary law that each member is entitled to one vote and only one vote for each position. Right? So once the candidate's name, the vote has been done for the one candidate, they move on to another candidate, so on and so forth until the voting is done for each candidate. Votes are tallied, and voila, we have our selection. As we talked about, usually we do our chairperson and vice chairperson elections in July. In June for an office starting in July, but we have our current chairman is deciding to move away. So, so what does that mean as far as terms go, right? So, usually don't talk about terms, but I think knowing what the terms are for our chair and vice chair is important. So, because it's important in considering nominations. So under our bylaws, no commissioner may serve more than 3 consecutive years as chairperson or vice chairperson. However, a commissioner may serve up to a total of 5 consecutive years where the commission's years of service are divided between the position of chairperson and vice chair. So for example, you can have a commissioner that serves 2 years as vice chair and then go on to serve 3 years as a chairperson. With regard to, like, I call them kind of special elections, and where we're going to be filling the role of the departing chair, whoever's elected to be that chairperson will serve out the balance of the current chairperson's term, and then will also be eligible to then serve a full year term after that. So it's not the term won't be shortened because you're filling the existing role.
Won't it be a little longer since it's starting a little early and we don't vote again until the following year in June?
So if we're doing an election, we're doing the election in February. Yeah, we're doing it in February. So the new chairperson will go in March. So we'll serve from March to June.
And then we'd have another.
And then we'll have another election, and then
Okay, understood.
in that, but the term limit. So the term limit won't limit that individual from
That
serving.
3 months won't cost against them for the year.
The 6 months doesn't go against the subsequent potential 3-year consecutive
Understood.
service. Yeah.
Exactly.
What about the word floor?
Yeah.
Is floor the people who are sitting or the people who are on the floor?
No, the floor is your floor.
That's
Not the whole floor.
I was going to ask that question too. Is who votes?
Yeah.
Is it just
Yeah.
the commissioners
Yeah, that's a
that
good.
vote for the
So right,
commissioners, or is it-
so you could have right. I mean, you could have meetings. Obviously that include the entire, the entire organization, right? And then if you were calling for nominations from the floor, it would include the
Right.
entire thing. But here we're just talking about the floor, including our board members. That's correct. Good question.
Okay. Any other questions?
And if you
All
have-
right. Well, thank you very much.
There's a memo, and I don't know if you have. Did they have the memo? Yeah. Okay. You have the memo that I drafted, which is there, and there's also you can always look at the bylaws themselves as well.
Good.
And if you have questions beyond that, you can always reach out to me.
So just one quick question.
Yes,
If
sir.
the person that's presently vice chair at this point tends to move up, then we would vote for both positions. But if somebody different gets voted for chairperson, the vice chair will just stay the same until June voting.
Correct.
Correct.
That's right. Yeah.
You'd basically be vacating the vice chair position and then vote to fill it.
And we'd have to vote
Yes,
for
sir.
that at the same time. We wouldn't wait any additional time to do that. We would do that next month at the same time.
You could, but it's easier to do at the same time.
Yeah.
It's easier to do at the same
Mhm.
If at the next meeting the chairman's unable to be there, you're in a quandary.
Right,
So it's
right.
best to fill them both.
Yeah,
That's
like
it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
Good.
So we have
Relatively painless.
the
Thank you, sir.
budget working session.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Today we have a brief presentation as a follow-up to our December 12th capital budget presentation. In particular, we want to give you an update on where we are with the capital budget, in particular the FY26 capital budget and then the 6-year plan that follows. Most importantly, how that can impact our charges, our rates and charges. And in this particular case, it would be the capital contribution charges and our system improvement charges, and what impact this has on debt. What you'll see as we progress through the slides, the first 5 or 6 are redundant from the December meeting. We're not going to spend a lot of time going over the redundancy, but we thought it's important to bring those forward in case you forgot. But just as a quick reference, and in addition to that, it looks like we're ready to go forward. First slide, Patty's pushing us along. First slide, again, this is nothing new from December 12th. We did want to point out a couple of items. One, that we were going to try to maintain our capital contribution and system improvement charges. We always try to maintain them either flat or as close to what they were projected in the prior year. We're maintaining our priority on renewal and rehabilitation projects, as they're very important to our operational side. And also we have gone, I think, ad nauseum over the number of estimated new EDUs that we would get on an annual basis. Instead of trying to predict against a trend that we do not see, we've been holding our EDU count flat over the past 3 to 4 years, and that has been serving us well. You'll hear a lot about development. You'll see a lot of construction. A lot of that construction out there already has had those EDUs allocated. They've been just sitting with them allocated and not going forward with the project. So just because you see work out there doesn't mean that new EDUs are being allocated. Next slide, please. These are some of the 2025 water projects. Again, these are here for reference. We already had these 2026 projects programmed in our last year approved budget. So in 2025, we had our 2025 approved budget with these projects rolling into 2026. So these projects have been incorporated into our cost analyses that we'll see in later slides. Nothing new, nothing's changed, but they were some of the major projects that we thought you should be reminded of. Next slide. There are some minor adjustments that we also pointed out back in December that we wanted to make in this year's capital budget. One of the first ones at the top includes the fiscal impact of the new Wacomico Shores replacement well. It says new. The only reason it says new, it's not that it wasn't budgeted. It was budgeted around $325,000 because the intent was to put the well back into the Aquia Aquifer where the existing well was. The Aquia Aquifer is anywhere between 300 to 500 feet in depth. When we spoke with MDE, all new wells now have to be in the Patapsco. Patapsco is around 900 feet. The cost is no longer $325,000. It's going to be $1 million, $800,000 to $1 million. That's just the way it is. It's a fiscal impact. It's one of the larger ones. So we highlighted that for you. The third bullet down, I think we told you this in December. We were very concerned about the big lead and copper inventory, and that if we found lead in our system, we had a 10-year plan to capitalize all of those upgrades, replacements. We were determined to be lead-free, so we don't have to incorporate a massive 10-year plan to replace all the service lines in the county. That was really good news for us. We looked at a couple project timings, and at the bottom, we did come up with something new, and that's why it's highlighted specifically. There is a project that that the state has put forward. It's Maryland Route 5. It's that whole section of congestion down by the bridge near Great Mills Road where the widening of the bridge has to occur. That project we've seen probably as long as we've seen the Thomas Johnson Bridge expansion. We had this programmed for 2026 because we were assured that that project was going forward because the design was completed. The funding has been removed. I talked with our delegation 2 days ago. They said the funding's not coming, but we've heard from the state, Christie's heard from the state, that they're pursuing some grant funding. Called the delegation back again. That federal grant funding is not going to be available for them either. We don't want to eliminate it. We think deferring it might make a little bit more sense because we think that project still has some momentum and will probably get refunded. They're telling us 2031. We're going to make a recommendation later in our presentation to put it out maybe in 28, 29, but not eliminate it. You hate to see a project that could cost 800,000 or so pop up out of nowhere and infuse your CIB. We'd rather have it in there and know what that impact is. And Patty's going to run through the same thing on the sewer side, so it's going to be hopefully just as quick.
Yeah, these are just very similar. These are the sewer projects that were already in their plan in the fiscal year 25 budget for fiscal year 26. Again, so we won't run through those. You've seen this list in the past. And at the top of this list, these are some changes that we are implementing for fiscal year 26. You may remember we did apply for grant funding, bay restoration funds for the Piney Point Force Main project, and we were not awarded grant funds. So in 26, we are adjusting the budget to incorporate that into our debt service.
$3.5 million.
Yes. We've also included the impacts of extending sewer to the St. Clement Shores service area as a special benefit assessment. This is allowed under Chapter 113. And we also will reach out to the county to see if there's any participation that they may be interested in.
This is one of those projects that you'll see, because it's a special benefit assessment area, it shouldn't count towards our capital contribution charges, but it will be debt. We will have to borrow. So one of our thoughts was, since we're participating in this health concern in the St. Clement Shores area, perhaps there's a way that, although it shows up in debt, that we can work with the county and somehow borrow at no interest. In other words, leverage their reserves and pay them back so that it costs the customer less, and it precludes us from having to go out on the market and get a low interest loan. Despite it being 2 or 3%, zero is always better.
Sure.
And since this is a direct benefit to this particular community, we thought that might be a good idea.
Then the fifth bullet down there is Spring Valley Drive. That project was in the prior facilities plan, but after investigating, we ran the TV cameras through the lines, and everything is in great condition. There's no buildup in the line, so we have removed that project from the capital budget. You did ask for the impact of the 3 consent decree projects on our rates and charges. We've done that at a combined total of $34.6 million. We provided that information last month. And further along in the presentation, we will show you that impact of those rates and charges. And again, deferring the state highway project as we have water assets and sewer assets down in that area.
And
so
the
that
combined
impacts
total,
both.
and the
Yeah.
combined total for the water and sewer for that MD5 project is about 1.45 million, which if we can move that out of FY26, that can only help our rates and our charges for next year.
Okay. And system improvement charges. So system improvement charges support our debt for upgrades and replacement projects. System improvement is a flat fee that customers pay on a monthly basis. On the water side, the calculation of the system improvement charge is $16.68 per month, and is actually 30 cents less than what we projected it to be last year in the plan. Across the entire plan out to 31, the average increase is 62 cents per month. And for sewer, even with the consent decree projects, the increase in the monthly charge is 80 cents per month. And across the 6-year plan, it averages out to 57 cents per month. The impact of those 3 consent decree projects is about $2.44 per month in each year. And the combined average of the increases for the plan is $1.19 per month. And if the Maryland 246 project gets deferred, as we're recommending, it would eliminate about 30 cents combined in the water and sewer system improvement charge. So we should, once we implement any recommendations today, we should see those charges go down.
So the average increase over the next 6 years on the system improvement charge side would be about $1 a month. So pretty decent plan considering all the impacts
Right.
that we saw this past year. We think we're in great shape on that side. The next slide looks very similar, but those are our capital contribution charges. They're one-time charges that cover costs of projects that involve expansions or extensions for new customers. And you'll hear that all the time. It's like an impact fee. The county has an impact fee, but that covers schools and many other services. This is just basically our impact fee for new construction. I get the easy slide. There are no proposed changes to water or sewer charges planned for the next 6 years. And as you'll note from the slide, they are the same charges on the water side that we've had in place since 2020. So no increases in capital contribution on the water side. On the sewer side, a little bit of a different story. If you look at the average increase over the next 6 years, it's about $801.04. That seems like a lot per year to increase capital contribution charges, but we have a note for you. Between 27 and 31, the impact of the St. Clement Shores Sewer Extension project is about $6.9 million. That's about $855 per year of an impact. And as we stated earlier, since that's going to be a special benefit assessment, that should not be charged to every new customer in St. Mary's County. The charge should only be associated to those benefiting properties in that particular service area. So we're going to make a recommendation to remove that out of here so that those customers pay for it as was intended initially. So this is what I would call the initial loading of all the projects as they were submitted into the budget, and then we'll make recommendations on how we want to come back to you. But we wanted you to feel comfortable and then sort of throw this out there and say, hey, it's about $800 a year increase. Have your eyebrows rise a little and say, but that's okay because we're going to address this a different way. So that's it on the capital contribution side and the system improvement side, which are the two ways we help pay off our debt. So we're in good shape.
So this first debt chart, we've been utilizing a self-imposed debt margin of 120 to 140 million, which leaves us well over 40 million for unanticipated projects or emergency projects. On this slide, we wanted to show you the debt excluding the consent decree projects and the St. Clement Shore Sewer Extension project. It's the values in the blue numbers across the top, and it does fall within that 120 to 140 million. And you can see where the top of the blue graphs are hitting within there.
It's sort of a slide that's not really necessary, but the question was, what if it wasn't, if those consent decree projects didn't have to be done in the time frame that they're being imposed upon us, we could stretch them out and move them to the right. But because we're required to do them now and pursue them now, curiosity, what if they weren't there at all? Looks pretty good. One thing we wanted to point out, Patty and I wanted to point out, if you look at the red portion, that's the retirement of our existing debt. Metropolitan Commission retires its debt at a rate of between $6 and $7 million a year. Obviously, the goal would be to incur new debt at that same rate, but not more. Sometimes you're not able to do that, but we do retire a significant portion of that debt each and every year. And it's often lost because we bring to you requests for loans, requests for borrowing. You never have a presentation on how much we're paying off each year. We just wanted to point that out this year. We do a really good job paying off our debt.
And of course, the fact is the consent decree projects have to occur, and we can't exclude or push them out any further. And although St. Clement Shores can be eliminated from our rates and charges, it still is within our debt calculation because we would borrow it and then pay off that debt through the benefit assessment of those customers. So it's still part of our debt, and it is included here. Going forward, the prior slide here, I think we won't present this slide anymore.
Yeah.
Going forward,
It has no
value.
value.
Yeah, going forward, it's going to be what it is. And you can see on this slide the blue dots across the top. We have to budget 100% of our debt to fulfill our budget requirements. But we only borrow as our cash flow deems it necessary, or when we know we've spent enough funds that we can reimburse ourselves by drawing it. We don't want to pay interest on debt that we aren't using. So the blue dots across the top is where we actually have borrowed, or where we fall in at 86%. We're generally at that amount of debt. So even though we budget and you see the higher graphs, we have not ever been at that in that year. If that makes any sense.
We have our 120 to 140 million comfort zone, that range of comfort.
Right. So you can see the box.
we're pushing it in terms of programmed, but in actuality, we never borrow that entire amount. Even at 86%, we're pushing that higher end, which I won't say we're not comfortable with because it's a comfort zone. We still don't like to be at the top, and we'll be making some recommendations to lower that at the end of the presentation. A lot of stuff going on that side, but it also graphically shows the impact of St. Clement Shores and the consent decree projects on top of the debt we would have without them. So that's why we want to eliminate the prior slide.
Okay.
Last year, we provided some notes and some small narratives on the project summary sheets. We use these to present to you. We actually presented them to the Planning Commission that way and to the Commissioners of St. Mary's County to point out the major changes in our plan. A lot of times you don't know from year to year what actually changed without the highlights being shown. So on the next few pages, what we have done is highlighted in yellow the substantive changes to the capital budget and improvement plan, and just put a small note. It's really more narratives for us, but it has helped what I would call upper level management just be able to scan through the documents so they can ask questions. The first slide, our first set of waterline projects, all these changes have to do with updated engineering estimates. Some are higher and some are lower, and you'll note that the bullet on the left talks about the elimination or deferral of the Maryland 5 project, which we'll get to in a few minutes. The next slide is a continuance of our water projects, in particular the wells. We pointed out already earlier that the Wacomico Shores well went from 300 some odd thousand to $1 million. You'll see the FY26 number is up at 1.1 million. We also have in 2028 and 2030 our Piney Point Landings project and our Pine Hill Run project, specifically prioritized. Again, those were at the 300,000 level, and we now know we have to go to the Patapsco aquifer, so those increases are reflected in our capital budget. We have no additional water storage tank projects, nothing new to report there, except maybe adding 2031 monies in there. The last of the water projects, miscellaneous. We had talked to you, we gave a presentation, I think it was in October and then again in December, about our new initiative to convert from AMR to AMI technology, which basically means we want to take our water meters into the remote read, sort of like SMECO does, as opposed to the proximity radio read system that we have now. It's going to be a great benefit to us, our operations staff, our customers. I think the last time Patty presented a water line or water bill adjustment, had we been able to identify that leak earlier, we would have been able to reduce that consumption and significantly reduce the bill that was being requested to be reduced by the board. It's great technology. We had a propagation study performed at no cost. And what we want to do here is move that project up to 2026 and get that first phase moving as opposed to waiting until 2029. There's just so much benefit to it. And you can see the cost for the first phase. We're only talking about $159,000. It's a lot to some folks, but to get this type of technology underway. It's going to be a really, really great benefit to this commission. The others are just minor changes in cost estimates, updated engineers' estimates. Very minor adjustment on the water side. And then since I got the easy slide before, we gave Patty the tough one. The first sewer slide's got a lot of activity.
A lot of activity. Again, there are updated estimates, engineers' estimates on here, which are reflected changes. The Spring Valley project, as I mentioned, is not necessary. So that you'll see has had the budget removed and replaced the BRF grant funding with debt service. And that's already incorporated. And increase our I&I efforts by $100,000 a year. We've talked about this in the past, that we would start doing that and make that a priority project. And just the increased cost of generators. You'll see that both in the water and the sewer.
There's one bullet there that you'll see on the Piney Point Booster pump station. That project was originally identified last year at a little over $3 million, but we found some new technology that allows us to do something significantly less, which is really good. We simply reallocated the difference to the Forest Run wastewater pump station. Similar to the budget amendment we had earlier today, the dollar amount's the same. It's just moved to another project. But we're doing that through the capital budget process as opposed to the budget amendment process.
And here we had mentioned in a prior meeting about considering a hydraulic capacity project in anticipation, but we do not have the results yet of the sanitary sewer evaluation. So we are going to hold off on that and just keep those projects as individual projects.
And the idea there, commissioners, is we have specific projects identified here that we believe pump station wide need upgrade. When we perform this sanitary sewer evaluation survey, which is part of the consent decree, there are going to be a series of projects that will be required to be completed. They may be different than these projects listed. So the thought was if we had a generic hydraulic capacity project, we would be able to be much more responsive to that change in capital programming. But because that won't be completed till FY27, we just decided it would be easier to leave these projects as is, because we do know we have capacity and upgrade issues here, and we'd like to continue to perform them because there are operational priorities.
And finally, the continuation of the vehicle and heavy equipment replacement program, which you'll see in both the water and the sewer side, and the planned funding authority for the basis of design report. We've added funding in for that. Okay, that's.
I mean, we're sticking to our plan. So where do we go from here? It seems like a really brief presentation for a capital budget this expensive, but we did make a lot of changes. You've seen the impact of the initial loading of the projects to our system improvement charges, capital contribution charges, and our debt. We're in great shape there. We've got a series of recommendations here to bring back to you that will make those pictures look even better, those graphs look even better. There's no motion, but we have provided several recommendations. We also have attached all the project detail sheets, the written descriptions of the projects. What we'd like you to do between now and the February meeting, I think it's February 27th, is take a look at those, pick a project that you're interested in, ask us any questions that you have between now and then. But they're provided not only here, but they're not intended to be presented here. They're intended to provide you with that information so you can read the detail. So a lot of good information in there for you to do it. So we recommend that you do. Those start on slide 20, 2 slides from now. There's a whole series of projects and their descriptions. Patty's going to briefly go over our recommendations. And again, there's no motion required, but these are some of the things that we'd like to bring back to you at the February meeting. So without further ado.
So continue to defer the state highway project from FY26 out 2 years to fiscal year 28. About impact of 1.5 million. the St. Clement Shore Sewer Extension, we had incorporated in debt service, removed that from the rate calculations, so that we will see a decrease there. And a section of that is upgrades, system improvements. It was originally 100% identified as capital contribution, so we're going to split that a little bit, 60% over to system improvement charges versus capital contribution. We do that every year. Engineering will do a second look at all the projects and determine is it expanding our service or is it just upgrading and rehabbing.
So for upgrading an existing line, typically that's 100% system improvement. But if it also provides additional capacity for new customers, that percentage or that portion should get allocated by law, allocated to the capital contributions.
And another project we look at every year is the Marley Taylor plant expansion, and we feel we can push that out from fiscal year 29 to fiscal year 30.
And that's only design. It's not a $3.4 million Marley Taylor
Right.
expansion. That project, when you see it, probably will be 40 to 45 million when it comes to fruition. Just a few years to the right of 2031.
And I did some rough calculations on the rates by implementing these changes. And so system improvement charges for water would be 7 cents less per month. And the sewer system improvements would be 60 cents higher, not 80 cents higher. And capital contribution, again, there are no changes. The rates will remain flat through fiscal year 31
For water.
And the sewer capital contribution would be $500 to $1,200 less of an increase for the sewer side between 27 and 31. There is no change to fiscal year 26. We will go back and re-request grant funding from Bay Restoration Fund. Their priorities may have changed, so we need to just keep asking.
We were eligible, we just didn't achieve enough points to receive the funding. The project's not done yet. It's not out to bid yet, so we're going to ask again.
The Piney Point Force Main, early in the design phase, we always budget for a 30% contingency. As we get closer and closer to that 95%, we revisit that, and hopefully we'll be able to reduce a little bit there. And again, we are not increasing our EDUs. That is a way to artificially reduce rates by increasing your estimated EDUs you think you're going to get, but that could come back to bite you if you keep doing that, but you don't actually see any result there. So
Yeah, we refuse to paint a picture to this board that looks good and is not achievable. We'd rather give you an attainable one and then do better than that. So again, as Patty said, if we artificially increase the number of EDUs, we could lower that capital contribution charge and make it seem as though it hasn't risen at all. And we think that's pretty disingenuous, especially this early in the budget process.
But we do look at our EDUs every year to see if we can find some sort of trend and possibly increase. And I guess that's it. Our next steps, we have the next meeting is February 27th. We'll be presenting the operating budget, and we will be requesting your authorization to take the capital budget to present to the Planning Commission. And at that time, we will have incorporated these recommended changes.
Great.
Otherwise, the calendar stays the same.
And then all of your detailed questions on projects, again, between now and the next meeting, just email us. Just don't talk amongst yourselves.
And as George said, there are, that's not it, but the project sheets are
As always,
portal.
comprehensive and understandable. Cheers.
Well, the one debt graph is a little squirrely. There are a lot of colors on there,
Yeah.
but we haven't figured out how to make it simpler. Maybe we can make 2 slides out of that one. But I think going forward. This year was a little bit easier, and I don't know why, because there were a lot of fiscal impacts that we had to absorb. But we're really in good shape this early in the budget process.
Very good.
Okay.
Any
Thank-
questions? No. We're all
Thank you.
just blown away by the level of detail, so. yeah.
No, that's not, you don't want the detail sheets yet.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah, we were taken back, we got estimates from the well drillers on going to the Patapsco, and it was hard to believe that it was three and a half times more than the shallower aquifer, but it's 3 times the depth, so just intuitively, that makes sense.
I do have a quick question now.
Yes, sir.
So the Route 5 deferment, when that comes to fruition, would you expect it to be cost more at that point? I mean, just everything's going
So
up.
whenever
why
we
wouldn't
defer,
that-
we keep track of all our estimates. We look at our estimates each year. In fact, we use bids that we've received to adjust our in-house estimates. We also escalate 3% per year period. So any deferral from one year to another will include an escalation factor. It's a good question. I thought your question was going to be, if we move it to 27 and it comes in, or we move it to 28 and it comes in 27, what would we do? We'd do a supplemental appropriation. We'd have a hearing.
As slow as it's going, it'll probably be lucky to see it by 2031.
We're trusting the delegation's timing, but we're making sure that we have the authority. And again, we don't have to borrow. If you have the authority, that's important. So we can roll that authority over each year as long as we don't borrow. So I think keeping it in our plan as opposed to eliminating it is fiscally really, really smart.
Agree.
Yeah, for sure. Good. Anything else?
No, sir.
We
Thank
are
you.
there.
Thank you for your service.
Okay.
We can't say it enough.
Yeah. I thought that Ed had something to say. I mean, I haven't heard from Ed for a while. So
He had a lot last time.
I did.
He had a lot last time.
That's good. All right. So I guess we have a did I see that we had an update on litigation as well, or not?
Yes, sir. We would need a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion, we go into executive session.
Hold on.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Specifically for
To discuss
discussion of litigation.
Investigation.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
The future agenda items first.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, future agenda items. We already have discussed February 27th.
We have commissioners, and this is also a time if you'd like to see anything brought up for discussion that whether it's imminent or just a background information that we can supply to you, this is a time for you to let us know. It's
Right.
not just for us to tell you when the next meeting is. It's open forum for yourself as well.
All right. Commission members' time. I don't hear any news, so commission members' time. Any questions? Any discussion?
Nope.
All right. So I guess we're ready for the executive session.
Now we make the motion. We need a,
Yeah, we need a
I'll make it
motion.
again if you like, put it in the right timestamp.
yeah, put it in the right time.
I'd like to make a motion that we go to executive session to discuss litigation.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We are in executive session. Approve the December 12th, 2024 minutes of the executive session?
I move to approve the executive session minutes from December 12th, 2024.
Second.
Seconder, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye.
I wasn't
Any
here, so I
against?
can't.
Any against?
We just have one
Okay,
extension.
we,
so I have that.
we have 3, so we have it, I guess.
We have 4 who are voting for and 1 who is abstaining. So we have a quorum for that.
You do?
Yep.
Okay,
Correct.
I didn't see the 4th one.
You vote yay for, you vote for the, accepting the minutes from last
Oh,
month.
Yeah, okay, so we have it. Good, thank you. All right, so have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.